covering sports for 30 years. It's one thing for an exhibition here, there, whatever, but you can't continue to be allowed to build a career without getting into the ring with fighters. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon.
But does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway.
Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK.
StephenASmith blasted the announcement, arguing that Jake Paul has never treated boxing with the seriousness it deserves. According to Smith, Jake's entire career has been built on spectacle, exhibitions, retired athletes, and opponents long past their prime, rather than genuine competition. He says this pattern disrespects the sport and that the idea of Jake facing Anthony Joshua only highlights how poorly boxing is being handled.
He can't continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers.
Simon Jordan voices deep concern over the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul matchup, saying it exposes the growing problems in modern boxing. He argues that the sport has become driven more by business than by integrity, with fighters and promoters chasing publicity and massive paydays instead of real competition. Jordan warns that when boxing turns into spectacle instead of skill, it risks losing the respect it has earned over generations. He cautions fans and industry insiders that matchups like this, while financially lucrative, set dangerous precedents for young fighters and damage the sport's reputation. Jordan believes this fight reflects a troubling trend where money outweighs athletic merit. To him, using a world-class athlete like Anthony Joshua to elevate someone who hasn't faced legitimate opponents undermines the credibility of professional boxing. He adds that turning a championship-level fighter into a marketing tool cheapens the achievements of those who have dedicated their lives to the sport.
But this, to me, is everything that's wrong with boxing. It's a money play. I don't begrudge Anthony Joshua get $1 million for an easy night's work. That's fantastic returns. Most people would take it. From the boxing world, what that means, Jake Paul is now a professional fighter. Whether we categorise him as a YouTuber or not, he's licensed to fight, which means that the governing body should be suggesting that it's not a fight. Possibly, they should be looking to sanction.
Yeah.
But they will, because the sanctioning fees will be enormous. Anthony Joshua will not lose his legacy like some people are suggesting, because no one will remember it in 2 or 3 years' time. If he embarrasses himself in there, they'll remember it. If he goes in and knocks him out in 30 seconds flat, or turns it into a little bit more of a sort of Jake LaMotta raging bull, holding him up for a few rounds and then knocking him out, then people will forgive it. He'll get a big bag of money, which most people in the world will take, and move on. And then we'll see if he fights anybody meaningful in the year. I mean, it is like sport has become. And what I got my head around on Saturday night was the entertainment value of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. The fighting of itself, I could Bill Pyth about it, but the entertainment industry is so prevalent in sport now. This is entertainment. This is going to have hundreds of millions of people watching it, and Anthony Joshua gets paid, and Jake Paul hopefully gets flattened.
I mean, I know the money's there. Does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway. But I think it does get damaged.
It's an exhibition fight, which it might well be.
Well, then what's the jeopardy in that? If it's an exhibition fight, which it shouldn't be, if it's a proper fight, then Jake Paul is going to get demolished.
Johnny Nelson weighs in, calling the matchup absolutely wild and genuinely dangerous. He explains that the contest isn't a typical crossover novelty, it's a real fight with serious stakes and real physical risk. Nelson respects Jake Paul's bravery but questions the logic of stepping into the ring with an established heavyweight champion. The shock, he says, comes from the sheer seriousness of the bout. This is no exhibition. One wrong move could have real consequences. His reaction reflects the mix of excitement, curiosity, and concern circulating throughout the boxing world. Nelson goes on to highlight how unusual Jake Paul is as a competitor. While Jake has shown skill and confidence in previous fights, Nelson emphasizes that none of his past opponents come close to Anthony Joshua's level. He sees Jake's courage as remarkable, but also deeply concerning, given the danger of facing a world-class heavyweight.
Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be unmissable, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight two-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think the last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that was when he boxed Usyk. So that means he's got to be fight fit on point. His last fight, he was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now, basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, get yourself ready for fight. It's not weights. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull. You know, so as long as it's not push and a pull, and don't put me down and don't touch me in the build up to this fight. You know, when McGregor and Mayweather, they had this side of don't touch me in the build up to this. If this is a real, legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. He's not crazy. He's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, because you said that before when we spoke about it being a proper fight or not. And Eddie Hearn and Paul's promoter, Nakisa Badarin, have both said in the last couple of days it will be a proper fight. And now you've heard the details. 8 rounds, 3 minutes a round, 10-ounce gloves. Do you believe it when they say that? It's going to be a proper fight?
Do believe it because AJ's involved. And I think AJ would struggle to he's going to take enough flack over this. But again, it's money talk. So I think AJ will struggle because it's an Owen situation. He goes in there, Jake Paul laughs at the distance. What do you tell you about AJ? Apart from he just earned an extra 15 million quid. If he goes there and struggles with Jake Paul, then what do you say about AJ? Look, your heydays are well and truly over. If he goes in there and knocks him out, then obviously that's to be expected. The glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, oh, I've got really good. He's very brave, Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got to believe this fight's actually happening. So now
Tony Jeff presents a balanced perspective, reminding fans that in boxing, anything can happen. He explains that training, preparation, and mindset can sometimes close the gap between fighters, even when one has far more experience. Jeff notes that Jake Paul's youth compared to Joshua could give him advantages in stamina and recovery, though he openly admits Jake is not yet on Joshua's technical level. Still, he acknowledges Jake's rapid improvement and insists that with the right strategy and discipline, surprising outcomes are always possible in a sport as unpredictable as boxing. Jeff also highlights Jake Paul's strong work ethic, emphasizing that his dedication to preparing for tougher opponents is undeniable. While Paul's skill set doesn't match Joshua's, Jeff argues that his commitment to training and constant learning should not be overlooked. He suggests the gap between them may not be as wide as critics claim, pointing out that discipline, preparation, and mental focus can help reduce physical disadvantages. His perspective adds a layer of nuance to the debate, recognizing Jake's progress while being realistic about the massive challenge ahead.
Prime, where Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, is, well, I'm not going to say he's coming into his prime because he had some great wins earlier on in his career before he lost to Usyk twice. By the way, when he did lose to Usyk, the last one was a decision. It was a pretty close fight. So now this fight is matched, and I just want to look at the tail of the tape. Now, looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got part of experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem prime a little bit older. They'll come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, you see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are including at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost 1. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4, 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people to this. So, what are the rules? That will take place at a heavyweight. Obviously, it's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul.
Shiel Sonnen says that Jake Paul's critics are finally going to see the truth about his level of competition once he steps into the ring with a legitimate professional. Sonnen notes that this matchup will reveal whether Paul's previous success was the product of carefully selected opponents or proof that he truly belongs in real competitive boxing. He believes this fight will act as a reality check, offering clarity to fans, analysts, and the boxing world as a whole. To Sonnen, The event marks a pivotal moment in determining the legitimacy of Jake Paul's career and the broader credibility of crossover boxing. Sonnen goes on to argue that this fight is a major test not only for Paul but also for public perception of the sport itself. Facing a world-class heavyweight, he says, will finally subject Jake to scrutiny from experienced boxing analysts and seasoned professionals. That attention will show whether Paul's past victories demonstrate real skill or simply the benefit of lower-level opposition. Sonnen suggests that this kind of scrutiny ultimately benefits the sport by reinforcing standards for anyone seeking professional respect, ensuring that debates are based on genuine performance rather than marketing and hype.
That it takes for Jake Paul to do this as well as for Joshua. You know, this isn't Joshua's first time doing a spoof fight. He fought Francis. That was a spoof fight. Francis had never won boxing before, but we understood he has fought before. It was one of those things where when you got through it, like coming into the front side, I'm sure Anthony Joshua trained plenty hard for it. Coming out the back, he probably realized I didn't need to train for that at all. That was fun. That was a good time. I got to hear him call my names. I got to go out there. I got to be light on my feet. I got to lay on these combinations and then cut an interview and put my hands over my shoulders like I accomplished something. What dreams are made of. And so Joshua did for those fights. It was with Francis, and this is a completely different kind of that type of fight, but it's still that fight nonetheless. Jake Paul has abilities to win this fight. A lot of them involve moral victories. A lot of them involve getting out of the first round. A lot of them would involve getting out of the first 2 rounds and haven't been knocked down yet. Want to be getting out of the 3rd round, you've only been on the canvas once, and you got up to your feet, you shook it off, and you're ready to keep going. Like, these things are all victories. The fight that it's going to happen. I think it's a big deal for Jake Paul. That's a big deal for everybody involved. I think it's a big deal that Francis sees that fight and realizes, oh, these things make sense. These things that make dollars, they make sense. That's his business. It's just his opportunity that he missed out on. And now Joshua's going to have a lot of fun. And overall, I see the fight being one-sided. And people keep saying, well, slow down. Wait till you hear what all of the rules under exhibition clause mean. As long as they're throwing punches at one another.
Dan Raphael focuses on Jake Paul's recent development, noting that Paul has noticeably improved since his fight with Tommy Fury, showing better technique, stronger stamina, and a deeper tactical understanding. But despite this progress, Raphael stresses that Paul is still far from Anthony Joshua's elite level. He highlights the massive gap between a rising professional and a seasoned heavyweight champion, reminding fans to manage their expectations. His analysis acknowledges Paul's hard work while offering a realistic assessment of the enormous challenge ahead, emphasizing how much growth is still required to reach true world-class ability. Raphael also points out that this matchup will expose both Paul's strengths and his vulnerabilities. While Jake has clearly improved, Raphael explains that nothing can replicate the experience of facing top-tier heavyweights inside the ring. This fight will test more than physical ability. It will demand sharp decision-making, precise timing, and real-time adaptability under pressure. Raphael emphasizes that boxing is not just about athleticism but about strategy, composure, and flawless execution, qualities Joshua has refined over years, and ones Paul is still learning to master.
In his most recent 2 fights, those are so-called real fighters, but not for a long, long time. Chavez is a decade or so past when he was best, and Tyson had been retired 19 years and had been, even when he was still an active fighter, hadn't been at his best over the last decade of his career. So they were guys with big names, but not threats. And the other fighters that he's faced have been a collection of either non-combat athletes, MMA fighters who've decided to come into boxing or had very limited experience in boxing. And then, a couple of guys in boxing that didn't have a lot of experience who were boxers but had been off, for a long time. A couple of guys you never heard of before who fought those guys, and those guys you'll never hear of again. Of course, the fight against Tommy Fury, which I know he lost, but it was like a split decision, as my recollection says, and it was awfully close. And for my perspective is, whatever you think about it, Jake Paul certainly has gotten better since he fought Tommy Fury. He's certainly gotten better over the last number of fights. Now, is he at an elite world-class level? Probably not yet. He may never get to that level, but so you got to give him props. He's taking a shot. A guy that I spend part of my morning talking to different boxing matchmakers, who I've known for decades in this business, who have vast experience of building fighters and moving fighters and developing them, and they know a lot better than you or me what they're looking at. And to a person, they were like, they don't understand why Jake took this fight because they think it's, one person used the word of decapitation. So he's going to be a monstrous underdog against a massive puncher. They're all getting paid.